Okay, so in this video, we're going to talk about how to find the vertex of a quadratic, which is also a parabola. So let's first understand what the vertex is. So if I make a little sketch here, the best I can, oops, that's a bad line. If I make a little sketch here, the best I can. Okay, here's our x and y axis, and I'm just going to throw a parabola up here. Let's just say here's our parabola like that. It's not the greatest one, okay? But the vertex here, I'm going to make it a blue point, is either the maximum or the minimum for a parabola. And it is where it changes. So if it's increasing, it changes to decreasing. If it is decreasing, it changes to increasing. And it's also where the line of symmetry goes through. So where it reflects over. So if you take this point, go direct it across, it will get there. So the line of symmetry goes through your vertex, but it's either the maximum or the minimum for it. So it's either the highest point the parabola gets to, or it's the lowest point your parabola gets to. Okay. So with these though, we're going to have to be able to solve for these because we're going to be getting to making sketches. So in order to solve for the vertex for a quadratic, you can follow a simple four-step process here. The first thing you need to do is find the x-intercepts. Okay? After you find the x-intercepts, you need to get the x value for the vertex, you find the average of the x-intercepts, which means add together your x-intercepts and divide them by 2. By doing that, you get the x value for the vertex. Then you will want the y value for the vertex, because you got to find the y value as well. So to get the y value, you're going to substitute the x value into the original equation, and you will solve for the y. And then once you have that, you have an x and a y, and that is your vertex for the parabola. So for instance, here I got an example here. I'll do a couple here. I got y equals x squared plus 2x minus 8. Okay, and I already had solved that the x-intercepts are negative 4, 0, and 2, 0. So we need to find the vertex. That's what we're doing here. So remember, the first thing is you need to find the x-intercepts. Well, they're already given here. I have negative 4, 0, and 2, 0. So I need to get the x value for my vertex. So to get my x value, I'm going to, like it says, average out the x-intercepts. So I'm going to add them together. So negative 4 plus 2. And then I'm going to divide it by 2 because I'm adding two things together. So negative 4 plus 2 is negative 2. And we're going to divide it by 2, which means negative 2 divided by 2 is negative 1. So for our vertex here, I'm going to make it over here in big letters. For our vertex, okay, it's a coordinate, x comma y. Okay, we have our x value now. That is negative 1. And that is just by averaging the x-intercepts. The vertex is going to be right in the middle of your x-intercepts. Now, then we need to find the y value. So like it says, then to find the y value here, what we're going to do is we're going to use our original equation, which is up here in the top. So I'm going to circle here. We're going to use this equation. And every time we see an x, we're going to sub in what we just found as negative 1. We're going to put negative 1 in for x every single time. So here we go. So I got y equals, so I'm going to solve for y. And then I have x, so I'm going to put this in parentheses. It's really important you put this in parentheses. So that every time we replace our x, we're going to put it in parentheses. Negative 1, we're squaring that. Then we're going to have plus 2 times negative 1, because that's an x again. Then we have a minus 8. So now you just solve this, which the nice thing is you could all honestly just type this in the calculator once, or you can solve. Negative 1 squared is a positive 1. Plus 2 times a negative 1 is a minus 2, then a minus 8, and this will be our y value. When we do that, we get y equals negative 9, which, like I said, you could type the whole beginning thing in the equation, use your parentheses. Okay, you get negative 9. So now you put that in your coordinate, and that's like it says, write it as a coordinate x comma y. So negative 1 comma negative 7 is our vertex for this quadratic, which is a parabola. Okay? So remember, to find the vertex, you take the x, you got to find the x-intercepts. Then you need to find the x value first by averaging your x-intercepts to get the x value. Then take your x value and substitute it back in the original equation to get the y value. That'll allow you then to write it as a coordinate for your vertex. So here we go. Here's example number 2. This time they just give us the equation, and we need to find the vertex. So, like I said, the first thing we need to do is find the x-intercept. So step 1, x-intercepts here. Let me change this here to a different size. So step 1, x-intercepts. Okay, so remember from what we were doing before, to find the x-intercepts, you're going to have to factor in your zero product property. So I'm going to go ahead and factor this first. So I'm going to do my diamond and my rectangle. Okay, remember the diamond here, we summed to 14, and that is in the top. And it multiplies to, oops, I lost my number here. This is supposed to be 48. Okay, and it multiplies to 48. Oops, I did that backwards. Sorry, my fault. Sorry about that. I made a mistake here. This is supposed to be a 48. Okay. So remember, fill in your generic rectangle and your diamond. Remember, x squared goes in the bottom left. 48 will go in the top right. And the bottom of your diamond is your sum, so that's 14x. And the top is the product, so we multiply the two. 48x squared is going to go in the top. Then you have to figure out what multiplies to 48x squared, but adds to 14x, and that is 6x and 8x. So that's what we're going to fill in, 6x, 8x. And then we're going to factor. So looking up and down, I have x, and then this one will be an x as well. So x times what is 6x? That's a plus 6. X times what is an 8x? That is a plus 8. So I then have my factors. So I'm going to go ahead and write this over here. I have y equals x plus 6 times x plus 8. Now we need to use ZPP, our zero product property, okay, which means substitute 0 in for y and solve. So I have x plus 0 equals x plus 6 times x plus 8. Okay, then I set each of these equal to 0. So x plus 6 equals 0. X plus 8 equals 0, and I solve each of these equations, and I get x equals negative 6 and x equals negative 8, which makes my x-intercepts here, so I'll write these in blue, my x-intercepts are negative 6, 0 and negative 8, 0. So now that we have the x-intercepts, we can go ahead and find the vertex. So step 2 is average the x-intercepts to find the x value for the vertex. So to get the x value of our vertex, we're going to do like we said, add them together, negative 6 plus a negative 8, and divide it by 2. When you do that, that gets you negative 14 over 2, which means your x value, if you divide that for your vertex, is negative 7. So I'm going to go over here, I'm going to say vertex equals, or my coordinate is going to be x comma y, so negative 7 is my x. Now I'm going to do the third step here in green, and that is to find the y value. Remember, that's using the original equation. You're going to plug in your x value to find the y. So we're going to do y equals our x value, which is negative 7. So it says this one is negative 7 squared. And make sure, remember, you put it in parentheses. Then we have plus 14 times x again. I'm going to put in parentheses again, negative 7. Then I have a plus 48. Okay. Now, the nice thing is if you use parentheses here, you can type this all into the calculator, and that will get you your y value will equal a negative 1. If you want to do it without that, remember, negative 7 squared is a positive 49. 14 times a negative 7 is a negative 98. And then we have a plus 48, which still gets you a negative 1. So now that we have our y values a negative 1, we can go ahead and fill that in our coordinate, in our y spot. So then we have negative 7, comma, negative 1 for our vertex, and we now have it. Okay, so remember, the simple process of finding the vertex is first, find the x-intercepts for your quadratic. Second is find the x value by averaging the x-intercepts for your vertex. So to find the x value for the vertex, average your x-intercepts. Third step is take that x value in, put it in your original equation to find the y value for your vertex. And the last step is writing it as a coordinate, x comma y. If you have any questions, please let us know.